Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to thank you so much for coming in today, and I wanted to just go over a few things with you. I am doing this assignment for class, so I thank you for being willing to participate. You have signed the consent form, and we've gone over a little bit about confidentiality, but for the purposes of this interview, I just wanted to remind you that everything you say is going to remain confidential. No one else but my professor is going to hear this. And if at any time you want me to stop the recording, just let me know and I'll turn it off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. So, I would like to understand the problems that that bring you here so that I can help you more effectively. I want to know about your experience and ideas. So I'm just going to ask some questions about what's going on and how you're dealing with it, and just remember that there's no right or wrong answers, okay?
Okay.
So what exactly brings you here today?
Well, not too long ago, I found out that I'm pregnant with my ex-boyfriend's baby.
Okay.
And I haven't told anyone in my family, and I haven't told any of my friends. And I'm really nervous about telling them, but I know that I need to tell them because it's really been, on my mind and weighing me down a little bit.
Okay.
So I just need some help figuring out the best way to do that and, getting myself to that point.
Okay. So people often understand their problems in their own unique way, which may be similar to or different from how a doctor would describe your problem, but how would you describe your problem?
Well, I think that this is mostly just a big source of anxiety for me.
Okay.
I just am really, really nervous about it, and my family is really religious, so I know they're going to be really upset about this, and I don't want to disappoint them by telling them.
Okay.
And I think it would really upset me if they were disappointed, and I'm just really worried about that the most.
Okay. So you have not told your family?
No.
Have you told any of your friends?
No.
Okay. So sometimes people have different ways of describing or disclosing their problem to their family, friends, or anyone else in their community. So if you had an ideal way in which you would describe your problem to your family, what would it be?
I mean, I would have them all, I'd just have them sit down, my family, and we would just talk about it. I'd be pretty blunt about it. I would just say, hey, I'm pregnant. That's what it is. This is what's happening.
Okay.
I just feel like that'd be the easiest way for me to get it out.
Okay. So, is the fact that you haven't told your family what's most troubling you at the moment?
Yeah.
So, if you had to characterize what troubles you most about your problem, what would it be?
It would just be my anxiety and nerves about telling them, and that they don't know, and that I don't have any support.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you have just found out you're pregnant, you haven't told anyone, and you would like to tell your family and your friends eventually, but what's keeping you from that is that anxiety and worry about how to tell them and how they'll react?
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you think you're feeling so anxious about this? Why do you think, or I guess what do you think is a possible cause of you feeling so anxious?
Well, I just think that I don't really know how they're going to react to it at all. I'm hoping they won't be, upset or disappointed with me, but I feel like that is a big possibility, and I don't want them to, think of me in a different way or look at me in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really the biggest thing.
Okay. So, since your family and friends do not know, let's just speak about if someone else in your family or someone in your social network were to get pregnant at your age. What do others in your family or your friends or people in your community think about that particular issue?
Well, anytime I ever tell my family that, someone I went to high school with or someone I know is pregnant, they're always just like, oh, that's awful. Clearly she wasn't raised right. Like, where are her parents? She has bad morals. Like,
Okay.
she needs God.
Okay. So to kind of go back to, well, first I think it's important to discuss like the religion and spirituality aspect that you just mentioned, but before we get to that, has your family or friends noticed any change in you recently? Like, do they have any idea that something's going on with you?
My family, no, they haven't said anything, or I don't think they've noticed. But I mean, my friends, kind of like I don't really talk to them as often or hang out with them just because I don't know. I'm just nervous about seeing them.
Okay.
And I've just been kind of like so nervous about telling my family that I haven't really talked to anyone just in general.
Okay. So do those friends have similar views as your family does about getting pregnant at your age?
It's hard to tell just because like whenever we would talk about someone else that we knew being pregnant, they were just going to be like, haha, she's a slut. But, I think they would feel differently just because we are friends.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just don't want to tell them before I tell my family.
Okay. So, since you haven't told your friends or your family, do you have any kind of support right now that's helping make this a little bit better for you?
No, I have absolutely nothing. That's really why I came here.
Okay. So, you feel as though you're pretty much alone in this at this point. You don't have any support from anyone because no one knows.
Yeah.
Does your ex-boyfriend know?
No, I haven't told him because he is terrible. He was a really bad boyfriend.
Okay.
And we did not end on good terms.
Okay. So this is literally something that is only on your shoulders. You are carrying this weight all by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So, even, I know that not having told your family and friends and not having that support is obviously causing you a lot of stress and contributing to that anxiety, but is there any kind of other stress that's making this worse for you? Like, so, for example, money, any problems within your family that were already there before you found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, I mean, definitely money is a big concern right now because babies are expensive, and my family is having some money issues at the moment, so even if they were supportive of it, they wouldn't be able to help much.
Okay.
And since I would be a single mom, it'd be really hard for me to come up with the money, so that's another thing that I'm worried about, and it's causing me stress.
Okay.
Other than that, kind of just like deciding whether I want to keep it or not has been a little bit of an added stressor. I think I'm going to keep it, but then again, I don't know just because of the whole money issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't get an abortion, for religious reasons. But
So you've mentioned religion a couple times now. Is religion something that you find comfort in at this moment? Like, do you feel like your religion is somewhat helping you personally come to terms?
Yes and no, because I'm not as religious as my family is.
Okay.
I'm kind of, I believe in all that, but I'm not super spiritual. Like, I don't go to church all the time. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not that religious, but...
Okay. So, sometimes the aspects of someone's background or how they identify can make their concern better or worse. And when I'd say background or identity, I mean like the community in which you belong to, or the language that you speak, or where you and your family are from, your race or ethnic background, your gender, sexual orientation, or even your faith or religion. So you talked about your religion and your faith, and you said it's not as strong as your family's is. So you're not, I guess, that's not something in your tool belt that you're using
Mm-hmm.
as a way to get through this.
Yeah.
So, other than that, what is the most important aspect of your background or identity to you that can either be considered like making this unexpected and unplanned pregnancy better or worse?
Well, I do come from a Hispanic background, so that
Okay.
doesn't help at all. I feel like I'm just the stereotypical Hispanic girl getting pregnant at 19.
Okay.
I don't feel like there's anything helpful. Everything is really just not working in my favor.
Okay. So you come from a Hispanic background. So tell me more about like how you identify with that. Like, is your community primarily Hispanic? Do you mostly surround yourself with people who are Hispanic? Is your family really big, really small?
So my mother is Mexican and then my dad is white. So I have that kind of culture on my mom's side and everything, but
Okay.
she kind of hides from it because she doesn't like to be associated with the negative stereotypes.
Okay.
So mostly we just hang out with white people, and we live in a more white area.
Okay.
So that's kind of what that is like. We don't really associate ourselves with too many people in the Mexican community.
Okay.
Just because my mom tries to stay away from that, so then I just wasn't brought up with it.
Okay. So, do you think that's kind of making this worse for you or better? Like, do you think if you were to be a part of the Mexican community, do you think this would be easier for you or harder?
I think it might be easier just because they might have a better understanding of what I'm going through.
Okay.
Because it is kind of a more common thing
Okay.
for that demographic. But at the same time, I don't really know.
Okay.
I feel like my mom is going to be really upset by this, and she's going to kind of feel like I'm bringing back those negative stereotypes that she's trying to get away from.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if I was more active in that community that it would be helpful.
Okay. So would you say that living in a primarily Caucasian community is in turn making this worse for you because of those negative stereotypes?
A little bit, yeah, because I feel like I'm just, bringing back everything my mom's trying to get away from.
Okay.
And making the family look bad.
Okay. So, are there any aspects of your background or your identity and how you identify as an individual that make a difference in this at all? Like, do you see anything as making a difference in finding out that you're pregnant at 19?
I mean, my family isn't poor by any means, but they definitely live a little bit above their means.
Okay.
And I am well educated. I graduated high school. I am in college, but it's
Okay.
going to be really difficult to finish that with a child.
Okay. So, have you ever experienced anything related to discrimination in this community that's making you nervous about revealing this?
No,
Okay.
not really. Everyone in our neighborhood is, pretty nice, but I don't really know them too well.
Okay. Are there any other aspects of your background or your identity that are causing other concerns or difficulties for you?
Now, I can't think of anything other than, just like my ethnicity
Okay.
and, the religious
Okay.
part of everything.
Okay. So, to kind of sum up what we talked about, you said that you are Mexican and Caucasian, and you're not really from a Hispanic community. Like, your mom is trying to move away from that, basically because of those negative stereotypes that she's trying to get away from. And you don't really feel like that's negatively affected you in revealing that you're pregnant. You said that your family is from, like, a pretty, like, stable community. Like, they make enough money. You did say that they were having some financial issues earlier, but it seems like it's not anything that's super scary or worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I kind of want to move on to how you're coping with this and, you know, how you're getting help for finding out that you're pregnant. Sometimes people have various ways of dealing with problems, like finding out that they're pregnant at 19, and this was definitely unplanned, unexpected. So what have you done on your own to kind of cope with being pregnant at 19?
Well, my coping strategies have not been the best.
Okay.
I've really just kind of stayed to myself a lot. I've just been in my room. I don't do too much. I haven't been eating very well, and I just kind of sleep a lot.
Okay. So it seems like there are some improvements that could be made.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that something that you're hoping to, like, work on?
Yeah, and I know once I tell my family, hopefully I won't have to do these things anymore, but I don't know.
Okay.
But I definitely don't want to be just by myself all the time, sleeping and not eating.
Okay. So, speaking of, like, those negative ways in which you're coping with this, often people look for help from, like, different sources, including different kinds of, like, doctors or helpers or healers. And I know you said you're from a Mexican background, but not, like, you're not really woven into it, per se. So, in the past, has there been any kind of, like, treatment or help or advice or any type of healing that you've sought out for with other problems that might even be a little bit similar to this one?
No, I've always just kind of dealt with everything on my own.
Okay.
And not in the best way. Like, I probably should have gotten help in the past for problems, but I never did. Just because I didn't want to bring attention to it. But this one I can't really hide.
So you've never gotten help for anything that you thought or felt like you needed help for?
Right, no.
Okay. Has there been something in particular that's prevented you from getting the help that you need other than you feeling like you're asking for attention in a way?
No, I don't know. I don't want to burden anyone with my issues, and I just like to deal with it on my own.
Okay. So let's talk more about the help that you feel like you need. What kinds of help do you think would be most useful to you right now at this time with finding out that you're pregnant and you're feeling a lot of anxiety and nervousness with telling your family and friends?
Well, I really just, I don't know. I need just ways to cope with the anxiety and the nerves of everything. Because I've tried several times to tell them, but I just, like, freaked out and I couldn't tell them.
Okay.
So I just need better ways to deal with that.
Okay, so I hear you mentioning something along the lines of, like, relaxation techniques, something that can help you kind of relax and, like, calm down before you have to reveal something like this. Is that correct? Okay. Are there other kinds of help that your family or your friends or anyone in your community that they've mentioned? Like, when you say, oh, this person from my high school got pregnant, has there been anything that they've mentioned about them in regards to getting help?
No. I mean, my friends don't really talk about getting help, but my mom will just be like, yeah, she just needs to go pray.
Okay. So that's going back to that religion and finding comfort and kind of a solace in religion that you don't necessarily feel connected to.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever been concerned about the fact that sometimes doctors and patients, you know, like counselors and clients, misunderstand each other because they come from different backgrounds or have different expectations? Such as, like, I, for example, am Caucasian 100%, and even though you're not super connected to your Mexican heritage, do you feel as though I might possibly be misunderstanding any of this because I don't have that experience that you do?
No, I don't feel like I've ever thought about that, actually.
Okay. So, do you think there are any possible barriers that you could meet when seeking out help for this particular problem, like when you go see doctors and any other professionals that you might see in the future?
I think it would be nice if they were not Hispanic, just because I feel like I relate more to that.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, I know these people are not supposed to have, like, any kind of bias, so I kind of trust that they're going to help me in the best way.
Okay. Well, that's really positive. I'm glad to hear that you have that mindset. We've talked a lot so far doing this interview, and you said that your main concerns right now are kind of working on the relaxation techniques and kind of just finding a way to tell your family and your friends without feeling so overwhelmed with anxiety and feeling nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So you would like to possibly continue counseling to work on those particular kinds of techniques to help you feel comfortable enough to tell your friends and family. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that concludes the cultural formulation interview. But now I'd like to ask you some follow-up questions about the interview, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So overall, how did you feel about answering those questions about your perspective in dealing with this unplanned and unexpected pregnancy?
I felt fine.
You felt fine?
Yeah, I mean, they were easy to answer, and I didn't feel like I don't know, it wasn't hard to tell you things.
Okay. So how did the questions affect what you talked about? Do you feel like you were able to talk about more than you intended, less than you intended?
Well, I didn't think I was going to mention anything at all about my family and, like, my heritage, so
Okay.
that came out.
Was that a nice realization or feeling of comfort in a way?
Yeah, it was nice because I guess I didn't really think that was going to be a problem, but now I realize that could be an issue.
Okay. How do you think the questions affected your relationship with me as an interviewer?
I felt like you were really trying to get down to the root of the problem and, like, find the best way to solve it, so I thought it was nice. It helped me feel a little more connected to you in a way.
Okay. So how different were these questions from those of the clinical interview that I did with you last semester?
I felt like these ones were a little bit more far-reaching, and, like, they were getting more out of me.
Okay, so when you say far-reaching, you mean...
Going a little deeper.
Okay. How did the questions affect what you think or you feel about mental health care in general? Did they, like, change your opinion of mental health care? Or
no,
kind of...
I have a pretty positive association.
Okay.
And I still do.
So that helped maintain that
Mm-hmm.
view? Okay. What was the most helpful thing about the questions that I asked you for you dealing with this problem? Like, what helped you most when thinking about how you're going to proceed with this?
I think talking about coping strategies probably
Okay.
was most helpful.
How was that helpful for you?
Because it gave me an idea of what I need to do to solve this.
Okay. So, out of the questions that I did ask you, what was the least helpful or something that you felt really wasn't applicable to your circumstance?
The question you asked me about, what was it? It was like, about my family or my friends and how they see the issue or something.
Okay. So when I asked you how they view, I guess, unplanned pregnancies at a young age, that was...
Just because I have already thought about that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So it didn't really help you realize anything new.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any particular questions that you think should be changed or maybe like taken out of that interview? Perhaps because they're a little unclear or kind of you just didn't really understand what they were asking?
No, I think they're all good because they can kind of cover a bunch of different issues.
Okay. Do you feel like they're applicable to many different kinds of clients?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any additional questions that were not asked during the interview but you think should be included? Like any topics that you wish had been addressed that weren't?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. So the last question is, how do you think the questions would affect your care if you were an actual mental health client? Like if you were coming to me in the real world for actual help, I'm an actual counselor, licensed, and you're seeking out help from me.
I think they would have the same effect that they did in this.
Okay, so you think it's pretty similar.
Helpful.
It's helpful. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again so much for helping me complete this assignment. I'm really glad to hear that you thought it was helpful, and I'll see you again soon.
All right, thank you.